The last Monday, they copies and make that for the shopping and storage units on Genesee. It was written for the condition make that. And read it. Looking at that, get what? It's not anything they give it, they gave it to the follow, but, condition make that for the special rules.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine.
Would have been. I mean, I don't really like to put.
Okay, of course, that's not here. Oh, there it is.
But
Okay, let's begin. Can we rise for the pledge, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Joanne Conley.
Here.
Rebecca Anderson.
Here.
John Copas.
Here.
Anthony Forsky.
Here.
Joseph P.
Here.
Stanley J. Giza.
Here.
Warren Korginski.
Here. Okay, welcome to the Town of Lancaster Planning Board meeting. Keep in mind that we are an advisory board, not a final decision-making body. The rules of the planning board allow us to recognize only the petitioners of the various projects and the representatives. We ask that anybody wishing to make comment do so in writing. We have a few administrative items and then we'll get to our agenda. Let's do the minutes from the April 6th, 2022 meeting. Hopefully you've had time to check out the minutes. Any additions or deletions, comments?
One little blip.
What was that?
There's one little blip.
Okay.
No one else got it? Under the, second to the last page, under the car wash and Dollar General projects, they're currently scheduled on zoning board's agenda for April 14th. Wrong. There was, if it was to happen, it would have been the 20th tonight.
Zoning board was,
Was that on the 14th?
it was April 14th, yeah.
Okay, then I'm sorry. That's correct.
All right.
Oh, they're on, I'm sorry, you're right. They're on,
Zoning board meeting.
right. Okay.
Okay, if nothing else, can we have a motion to approve?
So moved. I'll second that.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Communications list. Sherry, let's just add one to the communications list. That would be 4.20.11, and it would be the ZBA minutes from 4/14/22.
Can I ask a question about that?
Sure, and in fact, it's going to come up, but
Well, my question is generic. I was wondering if, after we've changed some of the zoning with the setbacks, there's been fewer applications to the zoning board for the variances that we had so many of, like fences on corner lots, setbacks. Has there been any change?
yeah, the meeting was 3.5 hours, I believe, and they had 12 items on
Yeah.
the...
There were 12 cases, 5 or 4 of them were cases that we're reviewing here at the planning board level. They were considerable,
Okay.
and there was a lot of audience participation.
Okay.
So the zoning board was gracious enough to get the residential requests handed down.
Yeah, right.
Signs, fences, things of that nature, setbacks for accessory structures.
But there haven't been overall a substantial reduction
No.
in those types. They're still done. So
More coming.
is there anything more we should do with the zoning, or they just
Highly
don't?
advise that we get a look at the record of relief that's been granted and compare it to the zoning code that they're asking relief from.
Right.
And do an in-depth study of our current zoning standards and get them up to date. I will remind this board too that upon the adoption of Schedule B, we did have 2 columns that were omitted on the transfer when we adopted the new code. They were a front setback requirement in commercial districts, and then there was another one that slipped my mind.
Okay.
Maybe a building height or something to that effect, but they were, somehow in the transfer of the documentation, those columns didn't make it over to the current code. It needs to be updated. So if one more time, we're at the sunset of our comp plan. It's time to look at that again to reassess that, and we may want to get through our zoning code another round of oversight, just to tweak it and get it proper.
Those are mostly just oversights, though. They're not.
Schedule B was an oversight,
Yeah.
but the other items have
People
been
are-
in existence for the better part of 30 years.
Okay. I just wondered if they had been addressed, and they have not. Thank you.
We had that implementation committee, but it seems to be in limbo right now. I think we lost a couple members. So, Emily, do you have any insight on to the implementation committee? I remember Kevin was on it and Kristen, and they're both
Yeah.
gone now, so
I don't know if it really went anywhere with that.
maybe check with,
Yeah, I can check.
Last
The
meeting
follow-
had to be canceled due to overscheduling. Just everybody had something to do
Yeah.
that evening, so they canceled that one. I would anticipate the mid-year meeting to be held, I'm thinking in June sometime. I have to look at the schedule and see what it's
and the pandemic put everything on hold. So. Okay, I probably should bring this up now too. Lisa from the attorney's office mentioned to us that the seeker review, I'm not going to read the whole letter, but the seeker review the planning board did for the rezone of 4781 Transit Road on January 19th did not include consideration of the site plan as is required due to the applicant not providing concise information for that. The neg deck resolution was not prepared nor voted on by the town board pending the planning board's review of the site plan. Since no official action was taken, it is not valid. The town received additional information on February 28th. It would be in the best interest of for the planning board to redo seeker for the rezone and site plan so all things are considered at once. So she would like us to reschedule the seeker for this rezone and site plan for the next planning board meeting on May 4th. I disagree with her that we did not consider the site plan, although I recall that after we did the seeker, we found out the site plan was a little different than we thought it was going to be. So in that sense, I'd be glad to redo the seeker. But I think we always consider the site plan when we're doing seeker, even though it was a rezone. But, so comments?
I was going to say, what you're saying is we did seeker for the rezone with the site plan as presented to us at that time, assuming that that's what we based our seeker decision on.
Yeah.
And now you're saying that they want us to redo it because we needed to address site plan independently?
No, at the same, not at the same
At the
meeting,
same
they
meeting.
were saying.
I think they feel like the information that we had was not concise enough at the time to make an informed decision on seeker.
So we've gotten new or substantive
Yes.
information
Yeah.
in that changes our,
Could change our...
could change our.
yeah.
Is it more than the driveway to the north that's the issue here? I don't remember any other changes.
I think that was the major.
That was a key one.
That was
though.
the major thing.
That was a key factor right there. I'm not sure about any other changes. We'll have to...
Because I
look into that.
believe they originally said that they were gonna make it right turn only, and then we did the seeker, I believe, and then we found out after we did the seeker that they no longer wanted to do that, that it was left and right turn, I believe, if my memory's right.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
But it's difficult, how do you do that? You look at what you have, and then when you go to do the site plan, you try to fine tune that. It seems to me that they want us to do rezone and site plan at the same time in order to do the seeker. It's, what comes first?
I think that was the point of the change in legislation, I believe in 2018 or 2017, based on a project that was rezoned and then was submitted for site plan review, completely revamped and not even close to what was presented for the rezone. And therefore, that's what triggered the requirement of a fully engineered site plan submittal
Yeah.
with the
Right.
rezone application.
So it becomes segmentation when that happens. I think that's segmentation, because you're doing this, and then you're doing this. You got to take it all
They're
together.
doing it at the same time. It's, it's a more clear, concise review of that project.
Okay, so as of now, we'll set the seeker and site plan review for, or not, seeker and rezone, right? For May 4th?
But we have to consider site plan.
Recommendation was made for rezone already. Site plan needs recommendation. Seeker needs to be completed before the zoning board of appeals can render their decision on the request for review.
But doesn't our decision on rezone become moot since the seeker is no longer valid?
You can rescind the neg deck.
You could rescind.
Instead of, if the change was substantial enough, you can rescind the neg deck. If it's not substantial, let it ride.
Based upon the information that was provided to Chairman Conley, the seeker had no effect, right?
Yeah,
It does.
that's the way I look at it, yeah.
We said neg deck, but it's as if we said nothing.
We said neg deck because I thought we said neg deck because we thought that northern driveway was going away.
But whatever we said, it has no effect because the piece that was missing was the site plan.
Yeah, I mean,
According to the,
you said the neg deck based on no driveway. If they walked in here with a site plan and had a driveway, you say, well, we're rescinding the neg deck?
Yep.
It sounds to me like we need to, before we do a seeker, if this is the way it's gonna go, we didn't make sure that we know we have the most current plan that we're looking at before we review and do a seeker.
Right,
Correct.
right.
Right. Well, the other issue that could happen, and they can go to zoning, and they can make recommendations that change the site plan. Which is their right.
All right, well, she's asking us to please schedule the seeker for this rezone and site plan for the next planning board meeting. So we'll go ahead and do that, I guess. May 4th.
Hang on though, is site plan, is a site plan submittal required to come along with the seeker forms?
Yes.
Okay, so if the site plan drawing comes with the seeker form, and we approve it based on that, and then they show us a site plan that it doesn't match that, then the seeker again is null and void,
If we rescind
right?
it.
If we rescind it.
We have to rescind it.
You rescind your recommendation.
in that instance, we'd need to rescind it. In this case, we don't because there's nothing to
Been
rescind.
rescinded for us, yeah.
Yes.
We don't have to act. on rescinding it. All right, let's move on. We have scheduled tonight the seeker review for 5827 Broadway, it should be. Anybody hear from? Oh, Lucas, there you are. Before we do seekers, anything you want to say, Lucas? Anything we should know?
Not really. You want me to come up with it?
Well, we may have some questions as we go through the environmental review. This is unlisted action, correct, Matt? Want to double check?
Correct.
So we're just using short form? All right, if you're ready, number one, will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulations?
No.
Two, will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of land? Well, definitely an impact, but
Go vacant to a building, it's going to change the intensity.
pardon me?
I said vacant
Yeah.
compared to a building is going to change the intensity.
So do we call that moderate to large, or do we just say small, no or small?
Small, it used to be developed. I mean,
We say small because, right, because there used to be a building there.
Right.
This is not like prime farmland or something.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
So
so, no.
small.
All right. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community?
No.
Okay. Four, this refers to our critical environmental area, which we do not have, so it's not applicable. Five, will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway? I would say it's got to have an impact at Bowen and Broadway.
Especially with a drive-through.
Yeah, it might have a difference in traffic patterns, but how much new traffic is it going to generate going to this?
So I can actually speak to that. I had a trip generation study completed. I have it here if anyone wants to see it. It compares it to the restaurant that was there 4 or 5 years prior. That's good.
Yeah, we should have,
Yeah, we should see that.
yes, we should have had that before.
Yeah, I emailed them that a little bit ago, but I didn't expect that you guys to need it. We hadn't really discussed it. I just happened to have it because I think I was kind of needed when speaking to the DOT.
Yeah, the DOT did indicate that, I think they actually said no impact. I take issue with that. There's got to be some impact.
Yeah, there's definitely an impact. You
But-
wanna, so
Yeah,
I mean, the summary is really just 2 pages. You could take a couple minutes and go over it if you like. It's like 30 pages, but really the main information is the first 3 pages.
Well, maybe you could just read us the summary or summarize the summary. Is it going to reduce the intersection, like increase time waiting at the intersection? One question they usually answer. The intersection, I don't know what the rating is of that intersection, but you usually don't have to sit through more than one light.
Yeah, there's, and this goes in, much more detail, and I read through the whole thing. I'm just seeing where the, okay, well, here's just a 1 paragraph conclusion, but they have, a whole bunch of different little sections here. But basically, the conclusion says, given the projected site generation traffic, the projected site traffic distribution, the thresholds for completing a TIS traffic impact study, and the roadway characteristics previously described, a full traffic impact study report is not warranted. but it goes through more detail on the change in AM peak hour and PM peak hour. Basically, it adds a few cars per hour in the AM peak, but it reduces it in the PM significantly when compared to the restaurant that was there, which makes sense because the restaurant was there for, it was mainly dinner service, I think, also. But it increases it in the morning. But to be honest, I was actually a little bit surprised. I thought it would have a bigger impact than it actually does, according to the study. It's well under the 100, the threshold that the DOT uses, which is 100 cars per hour. But I have it here. Really, the first 3 pages do summarize it pretty well. You want to see all of it, or just the first 3 pages?
I think we should have a copy of all of it.
That information was forwarded on Monday, about 20 after 1, to all the committees, town engineer, town attorney's office, planning board, and town planning and building committee.
Did you receive it, Neil? I didn't receive it.
I've been looking since I didn't see that.
I mean, it has a specific number of cars increase and decrease in the specified hours in the AM and the PM. It is well under the 100 threshold.
I stand corrected. My apologies. Planning board was not included in that.
Okay, I was going to say.
Well, I didn't even know you needed it. I was just like, hey, here's an extra.
These are state and local, these are state and county roads.
Right, yeah, I was just giving him extra info. I didn't think we needed it, so that's, I could have gotten it to you sooner if I would have known.
Yeah, the more information we have, the better.
And the comments that came from DOT and county highway department are going to impact what your answers are here on the secret review.
Yeah, it just explains the 3 different uses, the project description, and how each one impacts it. And the pass-by rate versus, one of the reasons it doesn't generate a lot of new traffic is actually because it grabs a significant amount of the already pass-by traffic. That's just one of the many things that it talks about in here. But it has the numbers for entering and exiting during the AM peak hour and PM peak hour. So should I bring it up at least for a quick review?
This is not a copy, you need this back?
No, I don't need it back. And this is the whole report. You're welcome to the whole report. I just trying to keep it simple.
Okay.
I think the result is it will impact it, absolutely, but it doesn't substantially change it from the pre-existing restaurant development that was there prior. This is more since they're county and state roads, it's really more the DOT that cares about this more. And this is why we pre-planned and pre-mapped and switched the entrance ways to where we moved them to, made some significant changes to the site from how I originally planned to move the entrances as far away from the intersection as possible and such. I don't think we have too many other things on the agenda. If you want to take 10 minutes and...
So thus, based upon IT published pass-by trip rates and our professional judgment, the proposed project is expected to generate the following new vehicle trips: 24 entering, 18 exiting vehicle trips during the AM peak hour, and 16 entering, 22 exiting vehicle trips during the PM peak hour. When compared to the former use, the site is projected to generate 1 fewer vehicle trip during the PM peak hour. So it only goes down by 1, but it does go down.
How much additional in the AM did it say?
It didn't summarize that part of it.
I think it's on the chart.
Yeah, maybe it's on the chart.
I don't want to put you on the spot, though.
I need a traffic engineer to read these things sometimes. Well, do we have enough information to answer number 5? And
I think we do.
I think so.
It's essentially not creating more traffic much. It's just
Rearranging it.
rearranging the morning coffee goers.
So the answer to 5 then is no.
or small. 6, will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? That's a no, right?
No.
7, will the proposed action impact existing public-private water supplies?
No.
Public-private wastewater treatment utilities?
No.
8, will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources?
No.
You didn't have to get what do you call that, the
Shippo?
CHIPO sign off?
I actually,
Activity did provide it.
yeah, I did. They came back that there's no archaeological
Okay.
significance.
9, will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources? For example, wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, and fauna?
No.
No, there's none of those there.
10, will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems?
No.
Not if it's done right, right?
Correct.
Should decrease it significantly.
11, will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health?
No.
No. All right, so we had no or small for every one. So based on that, we have a motion.
I'll make a motion.
For
Negative deck.
negative declaration. So motions to recommend a negative declaration. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any comments? Yes, sir.
I'd like to recuse myself from the vote on seeker and from the site plan review. I'll just sit in.
Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, seeker is, the neg deck is carried. All right, now we have site plan review. Since we saw you last, Lucas, have you made changes? And I believe you have, right? Can you summarize the changes that you made? And
Yeah, absolutely. I met with Ed right after our meeting last time, and it was very productive. He was very helpful. I wasn't aware that we had to meet the 100-year storm characteristics. We clearly do. And so we adjusted the plan a fair amount, actually, quite a bit, the engineering of it, to basically be able to hold and accommodate for a much larger, much more rare 100-year flood situation. So we changed it pretty significantly in that regard. The building and shape of everything didn't change much. But I did, because we needed the extra drainage capability, we pushed the building 5 foot north, and we needed a variance for that. So we did obtain that variance earlier this week, and we obtained the other variance that we needed as well. So those are completed. I got Ed's review letter. We made one very minor change that he had noted in there. I have the revised plans with me, and I sent them to Matt earlier today, or yesterday. And so that's the main change there. We got the SHPO letter in the last couple of weeks. We got this traffic study in the last couple of weeks. We spoke to the attorney's office. They're preparing a final agreement needed for post-construction maintenance. So that'll be done shortly. Am I missing anything? Anyone think?
well, I have some questions, and maybe we'll
Yeah, shoot.
catch up on. Are there any other projects like this in the area that you know of? A mixed use with motel units and?
Well, there's a lot similar in that it's actually very, very common to now, these days, it's a very modern direction people, developers are going in with having plazas where there's commercial spaces on the first floor that are mixed use, retail, office, and then apartments on the second floor. So that's very similar. It's not identical. It's
Right.
certainly not, but they're popping up all over, and mainly in high-end areas. Like Clarence, for example, they're developing Main Street that way. They keep going down the line, adding these, really nice buildings all the way down the line there, commercial on the first floor. And like I said, apartments, similar, but not the same on the second floor. So it's a nice look. I think it adds quite.
I have to say that I'm very skeptical and apprehensive about this motel, and I think there's others in the community that are pretty apprehensive about it as well. Have you considered doing apartments as opposed to the motel?
Yeah, we did consider that. That would involve, a change in the zoning, and we're trying to avoid changing the zoning.
Oh, I didn't know, wasn't aware of that.
If I can add to that, there's going to be discussion coming up, beginning, I believe, tomorrow morning, with some other property owners that have similarly zoned properties that are actually converting into the other direction. And again, an update of our comprehensive plan can respond to that inquiry, only because of what COVID did to not the entertainment industry, but
Hotel?
the hospitality industry. Okay, so I would anticipate further discussions on this topic, specifically allowing residential apartment units within those commercial districts.
Well, let me ask you, if it had been the same, the correct zoning, would you have gone in that direction instead?
Yes, I would have. But to be honest, what we're doing is not terribly dissimilar. It's an extended stay motel. So
Maybe it's my perception, but I find it pretty different, but.
Yeah, I hear you. And we're definitely trying to keep it within the zoning, but that is for the town's benefit, to keep within the master plan. That's the reason that
Okay.
we're labeling it that. And the use is that, but if you guys change the master plan and the zoning, and it can be switched to apartments, I'd be open to that. There's some certain design things that are meant for, shorter term rentals that we're building in, like we're doing an area for laundry on site and for housekeeping and things like that. But those rooms are able to be, converted use-wise.
I'll also note that in the last two considerations of rezone applications, a rezone of this property would reduce the intensity of use and occupancy in the district. The multifamily mixed use is, as I said, less intense than a light commercial zoning district, which is also very exactly the way the two adjoining properties are currently zoned, the Bell Tower and Park Haven. Is it Park Haven?
Going to
Ag
the,
homes, as well as Edgewater on the north side of Broadway. That's all mixed, multi-use, mixed family zoning.
I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but I'd be more comfortable with that than what's going in there. How about landscaping? Will there be a berm and a fence? I know you probably put it in your site plan, but discuss landscaping for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially towards
Bell Tower side?
Bell Tower.
Yeah. So I'm a fan of as much landscaping and trees as I can put in. The larger retention area doesn't allow for a lot of trees along that edge, unfortunately. I would like to still get some added in there, but there's not a berm per se. There's the opposite of a berm for storage of water.
Swale, like a swale, or?
Yeah, basically a swale and a retention detention area.
It's a pond.
Okay.
A small pond, if you want to call it that.
All right.
Yeah, the fence is in terrible disrepair, and I'm planning on completely changing that out and replacing it. So to keep some privacy there, and if I can get some trees, after the fact along that edge, I absolutely will. I know there's some dead trees there, which are an eyesore, and I'll be removing those.
So you're not just going to repair the fence, you plan to put in a new fence?
Well, I did take a walk through there recently to evaluate that specifically, and it looks like the 4x4s, the main structure, is actually in good shape. The 2x4 lateral supports are an okay shape, and the posts and the pickets themselves are terrible. So the pickets and the lateral supports I would replace. The only thing I wouldn't is the 4x4s.
Because I hate to see you just put a Band-Aid on this thing and
No, this is not a Band-Aid. This is going to be a brand new fence, and once the pressure-treated characteristics of the wood are gone within 6 months to a year, I'll paint it a nice color to match. So no, this is not a Band-Aid. This will be very nice looking.
Okay, we have to ask these things.
Oh no, it's good you are. No, this is what we're doing here is going to significantly improve that area.
The front facade of this structure, we haven't seen any pictures of this thing. We have a site plan, but no renderings or anything.
Yeah,
We
there is-
did.
Did we?
there's renderings, yeah. Yeah,
Is the, so
from different angles, too.
is it brick or, I
So
guess
it's-
I was looking more for an actual.
Color. Yeah, it's not colored.
Color is not on there, no. It's not specified on there, but it's a very modern looking and feeling building. The materials to be used on the exterior are not brick, but there's a series of stackstone, which is a high-end material, longboard, which is an exterior high-end commercially used product, and stucco are the main products. So it's a nice mix of expensive fixtures. There's nothing cheap about it.
How about lighting? Nothing shining towards the,
Yeah, we're under some constraints due to the access overlay district that's there, so we can't have lighting that's too tall. But we do have parking lot lighting built in that meets the code there. It's not very tall, so it really, shouldn't be of much significance or relevance to the bell tower development. But there is lighting in there, of course, yes.
it's been suggested, and I agree with this, I don't think there should be a left-hand turn out of the curb cut on Broadway.
Right now, there's 2 full entrance and exits out of that side, and we're already eliminating one of them, which is an entrance and an exit. So to remove another, I would probably prefer not to, but the DOT may ask that same thing, and if they force me to do that, I would, of course, absolutely do that.
I don't know how the board feels on that, but we may ask that as well.
I do what I'm told.
It can, you know very well, it can be a mess there at certain times of the day, and, I've gone in that gas station at Quick Fill there, and sometimes just to get back to the village, you can't make a left, and this is even closer.
Yeah.
And,
So the recommended traffic flow is going to be coming out of the drive-through and then back around through the parking, through the parking area, and then exiting out on the Bowen side. I think that's going to be more conducive to better flow. But at the same time, it could increase the traffic pattern to Bowen even more if we eliminate a left-hand turn in non-peak times,
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but I think it might be worth the trade-off there. I'm not sure. I'm not a
Yeah,
traffic
so
engineer.
I'd
but-
rather not do that, but, if I'm forced to do that, then I'm forced to do it,
There are times of day when you can go bowling down Broadway, and
That's-
there's no traffic.
That's a good point.
So
Yep.
I'm not saying for or against this, but if you have to loop around and come back, I think when it's busy and crowded and you can't easily make the left-hand turn, most people would realize they need to go out through the light. But when there's nobody there, who cares? Most of the time, coming out that other driveway, they're gonna want to turn right. That's
Yeah.
when the light.
Yeah, and I actually on purpose, I put extra room between the parking areas on the building side and the street side. I put a couple extra feet there, so it would be conducive to people turning left out of the the drive-through and go through the parking area to exit out on the other side on
Okay.
Bowen. So if we don't have to change anything else. If they want to limit left-hand turns, they or you, we can. I just don't know that it's only a good thing to do that, that's all. We could always put an arrow directing traffic that way, but not discluding the possibility, so not making it illegal to pull out left too. Just throwing ideas out.
Yeah, I don't know if it's viable. Delivery trucks, well, there's possibility of noise concerns in the area. Any issues there that you foresee?
Not really. There's, with the extra parking area that's on the east side of the property that's technically owned by United Refining, there's actually a surplus of parking area that we're above and beyond what the town is requiring. So there's a lot of extra room for overflow, As far as noise.
There are 2 loading areas that are provided on that portion of the project.
Yeah. I do have a set of plans if anyone wants to look at a big version. I'm happy to. I got them right in my seat here. But as far as the noise, those deliveries are going to be made during business hours. We're not getting late night deliveries. This boutique coffee shop is going to be more active in the morning than it is in the evening. So even in the evening, I don't think the impact of sound from those is going to really be too significant.
Well, let's talk about the coffee shop. Now, is this Tim Hortons again? Or?
It's not set in stone. It's probably not going to be a Tim Hortons. Probably not.
So you're not sure yet?
I'm not 100% sure. I don't have a signed lease agreement yet. The company I'm trying to put in there is a boutique, smaller. It's not a Tim Hortons. So I'm hoping to go that direction. That's why it's a little bit larger for more indoor seating, to be more of like a gathering space, because it's more of a boutique, coffee shop. But if that falls through, we might have to look a different direction. So I don't want to limit myself and say no, but that's not the intent.
Nothing against Tim Hortons, but we have plenty of them in Lancaster.
We do, yeah. There's not actually one terribly close to there. I think William Street is probably the next closest one.
And there's a little one, I think, in Pavement and...
Yeah, there is there too. That's further though. But yes, there's one other one there. But there's really not. That's why Tim Hortons keeps reaching out to me, trying to get me to lease it to them. But I prefer not to go that direction.
Okay, I might have other questions, but I'm going to turn it over to the members. Any comments?
I've got to ask you, if it's not a Tim Horton, would you ever consider no drive-through? It would make this a lot more palatable if it were not a drive-through situation. It would limit the whole congestion, morning, whatever. Would you ever consider that? No drive-through?
So I did in the beginning, yeah. But to be honest, after speaking with several other coffee shop owners, I'm not in that industry, necessarily. I'm in several others, but not that industry. So I seeked out.
Well, you
counsel.
mentioned a larger dining room with more indoor seating. It seems
Right.
that maybe that's the direction you're going in,
It
rather
is.
than...
It is. I'm trying to discourage the use of the drive-through, but just what I was advised by not one, not two, but three coffee shop owners is that I would be a fool not to put in a drive-through, because there's always going to be a certain segment of the population that won't stop in the morning and sit down. And I tend to agree. After they went over the dynamics of it and the ups and downs, they're right. It would be foolish of me not to have that built in there.
Most of the traffic, though, is going west in the morning from the Alden area towards downtown and Lancaster, et cetera. I mean, are they really going to...
The ones coming up Bowen would. There's a lot
Up
of traffic
Bowen,
coming
yeah.
north on Bowen.
Yeah, I mean, I can't predict that any better than the traffic study. But yeah, I did consider, to answer your question, the non-drive-through, and that's part of the reason I'm going the opposite direction. I'm trying to, gear this more towards, a community setting with indoor seating and meeting space, boutique. That's where I'm going. That's where I'm pushing hard for. But again, I was told, 3 owners, you'd be a fool to
Were they Tim Horton owners?
to cut off 30% of your business. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. There's not a ton of profit in the coffee industry if you don't have a drive-through capability. You're excluding too large a base of your customers. No, none of those. One was a former Tim Hortons owner. Yeah, so I guess in that sense.
Anybody
Good
else?
Mix Coffee and another.
By the times.
Questions?
Oh, yeah.
Rebecca?
My question is, when this was the restaurant came in for something or other, and I can't remember the full conversation, but I tried to get them to get the dumpster onto their own property then. And so the only concerns I'm having is the use of property that you're under an agreement with, but you don't own it. So there's nothing that says that, it's Quickfill, right, that owns it.
Yeah, United Refining, yes.
That they couldn't decide they wanted to do something there and just say to you, well, move your dumpster and you can't use that parking, or do you have a Loctite agreement with them?
Yeah, I have a signed encroachment agreement, so I don't think that's a
Perpetuity?
possibility.
Is it perpetuity or is it
It's
as long as...
not a short amount of time, but I have a backup option, because I tried to buy that property.
I know.
I don't like dealing with
You
situations
mentioned
like
that.
that, but they wouldn't have it. It's just a flat no. So the drive-through is actually double wide deep, and that's as a backup plan. So I can put a loading zone in the back there if I needed to, and that would be the most out of sight, the best place for it, except for where it's currently at. So I have a backup plan built in, have the space for it.
So that information should have been provided to the town attorney's office for review, which is what was part of my original comment. I believe it was number 5 or 6 of my comment letter.
Right.
All covenants, the restrictions, and agreements that are to be filed with this project. The town attorney's office should have those things at the end, and if necessary, they may need to be filed on the deed as a covenant.
Right.
Perpetuity, as with the stormwater and all of the other restrictions that the applicant is presenting. That's the purpose of each one of our departments offering our input as a resource to this board. So one more time, that information should be with the town attorney's office for its review and comment to this board.
Is it? Should be is one thing.
I'm looking through the file now to see if it's in here or if they just have it.
They probably have it,
In the
they might not
office.
have reviewed it yet, you know? But I think, I sent it to Matt sent it to them, so they have it, but I don't know if they've
February 4th was the initial comment letter, was item number 5, and it was specifically geared toward all of that
Right.
legal documentation so that it was proper and we don't have any
That's-
loopholes that are hanging at the time of approval.
That's
But
why
honestly-
I'm bringing it up. I'm bringing it up because I don't know the answer to that.
I would highly advise you inquire with the attorney's office.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure we're not moving too quickly here because we don't know the answer to that yet.
Yeah, just to, I do have that backup area built in as a last resort, so I don't know how terribly relevant it is. But I totally hear you, and it's good point to look into.
I wanted that dumpster off of there the last time it was there from the restaurant.
We're gonna hide it really nice, though.
That's not my point. It's the fact that at that time, it was being complained about being over there, not being on the property, and then the former owner was asked to move it and didn't, because the way the old configuration was, there was room to put it. It would have been kind of close to the bell tower, but there was room, and now you've changed that, so now you don't really have a spot that you're showing where you could alternatively put it.
Right, I don't wanna show that on the plan,
No,
that's not the plan, but I do.
You're
If
telling
you-
me that you do have space.
Yeah, it's in
for
the southeast corner.
Should you
It
move-
fits there, yes.
it. Down right around that little, okay, right near the retention basin. Got
Yeah,
it.
yep, right next to
Got
that,
it.
yep.
Okay, and then the parking, you would still meet the required number of parking spaces without the ones that are on the adjacent property.
I believe so.
I believe you
Yeah.
said you had more than you needed.
Yeah, we definitely have more than we need. I don't remember exactly how many, but I'm pretty sure that, yes, we make that, yeah.
I remember looking at that at one point. I just want to make sure in my head that, I actually don't mind the concept of extended stay motel type business. Extended stay, to where I've talked to people who've used them, it's a week. They come for a week, maybe more.
Or longer, yeah.
Yeah,
Or
maybe more.
Quite often
But
longer.
most, what my personal experience has been, people stay for a week, and then they go home for the weekend. And then they might come back the following Sunday night or Monday and use it again, but they come for a week. And I don't really have a problem with that, because the traffic in and out is not much different than as if it was an apartment.
Yeah, agreed.
They get up and go to work in the morning, or wherever they're going, that they needed a place to stay. So I'm torn about
Yeah.
your discussion
Well,
of
I
if
think-
it was housing, we're kind of, I'm on the fence.
I think we're a little apprehensive about what
What type of
might come,
person?
yeah, what might come, you hate to say it, but,
The car with no muffler?
okay.
This is gonna be way too expensive to bring that type of people in. Sorry, way too expensive.
I don't want to sound elitist.
May
or
I
anything,
ask
but-
what the rates might be? You don't have to give me exact, but like a ballpark of what a rate would,
Yeah, it would change on the day or week or month, but the, off the cuff, a day would probably be in the 250 range.
Okay.
Most likely the week, it's tough, but probably more in like the seven, something like that. And then the month would probably end up being about 2,000.
for a month, for one of the units?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're larger kitchens, quartz counters, all full tile backsplashes, stainless steel hoods. I mean, they're meant to be lived in for a length of time if you need to. And otherwise, if you don't use the kitchen facilities, then okay.
Are the interior plans available to us? Is that a thing?
Yeah, the floor plans
Yeah.
are in the, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, also I did, and I would say, again, I did, last time I was in about a month ago, I went out of my way to offer to my cell phone out to be available for any questions, because I made my intent clear to try to get it, approved this time, because we are within the zoning, we're doing everything, we're not asking for anything out of the ordinary here, it's all within zoning. A variance has been approved, but you can still call me after too. happy to talk about it. I met with the Bell Tower residents after the last meeting, and I'm looking forward to meeting with them again once their manager is back in town, if they're not already.
Anybody else?
Just one thing you mentioned about replacing the fence. Matt, is it possible with a commercial business to put an 8-foot high fence up?
Is it possible? I believe, I'd have to
Without
do it and look exactly, in the non-residential districts, it is permissible,
Because
but we have residential districts. It's adjoining a residential district.
Right.
So it may not be permissible.
Okay, I was just wondering if that would help at all in any way.
I would be fine with that.
If it would help Bell Tower, at least it'd be a little higher. And you might have room on the outside of the fence, between the fence and the property line for trees.
Well,
You might.
there's only a
It's
couple
tight
feet
there.
there. There's really not.
It's tight.
Yeah, if, when the time was right, I was gonna ask if there was any plantings like that allowed, on the outskirts of that basin area, but it's not the highest priority. I'd have to ask Ed about that at another time when it's more appropriate.
Ed, any more comments?
No, I mean, from an engineering perspective, they addressed everything. There's a bunch of other outside approvals required.
Yeah.
But outside that, no. The only thing I'm working with Lisa on getting the stormwater agreement in place.
Okay, Matt, anything else?
Yeah, I just had a couple of questions, and I can answer your question. And under the code for the fences, the 8-foot abutting a residential district is prohibited.
Prohibited.
It should not exceed 8 feet in height. So if it's a recommendation, you can make a recommendation. It should not exceed 8 feet in height.
Oh, so we could.
Oh, it is permitted then.
Yes,
Up to.
cannot exceed, so you can put an 8-foot fence.
In no event shall fences or walls in non-residential districts, abutting residential districts, exceed 8 feet in height.
Oh, perfect.
So
Okay.
if it's a recommendation by this board to put an 8-foot fence in it, by all means.
Well, a little less than 8 foot. Little less than 8 foot.
So it doesn't exceed.
Councilman Mazur?
That might mess up your plan of reusing the post, though.
Yeah, I run a construction company, so I was already thinking about, I already got a couple ideas how I could leave those.
And if I can also ask, I believe at the original submittal, we had a photometric plan of the site. Wasn't there one provided that showed the luminaires with respect to the property lines? Because there is some notations in the site plan that identify a 12-foot tall lamppost with reflectors to prevent the light spillage outside the property line. So I thought we had a photometric plan. But it's not-
I can't answer that definitively.
I mean, it's not. What's the photometric plan? It basically identifies the intensity of light emanating from the fixture. So the building code is going to require exterior entryways to be lit. Parking lot needs to be lit, and we're well below the height requirement for lampposts. It's at 12 feet. They are LED lights with the shrouds on them, so
Yeah.
they can be directed, they can be restricted.
Okay, there's a lot to digest here. I, for one, I don't want to give you the runaround, Lucas, but I'm happy that you want to put something there. I think this has a lot of promise. That corner doesn't look that great right now, and but I feel like I need more time to look things over and for some other things to be taken care of. I don't know how the rest of the board feels.
Well, what are they missing that we can't?
Yeah, I guess I'm curious about that too.
Basically,
I mean, the only thing that seems like it might be lacking is whether or not the attorney has the legal description and the perpetuity or whatever relative to that other piece of
that could be conditioned.
property.
Yeah, can we do that conditional?
That could be conditioned,
Well, we discussed some possibilities of some changes as well, and we kind of left it at that. You know, the drive-through and the possible change. if there was
What on the drive-through?
Zoning change.
Sorry, refresh my memory on what on the drive-through?
Whether they're gonna have one or not, it's coming with a
Do
drive-through.
you really?
Oh, yeah, I need the drive-through. Sorry if I
It's coming
wasn't
with the
clear.
drive-through.
Yeah, I do.
Right.
It'd be, from a business perspective, it would just, I'd be shooting myself in the knees for that. I can't not do that.
So the drive-through's in.
We can condition that he doesn't get any building permits until the town attorney's satisfied, right? Is that what you're saying with the agreements? We can condition that it would have an 8-foot fence on the south side of the property between them and the bell tower. So you couldn't replace it with a 6, you'd have to do an 8. You'd have to be okay with that.
Yeah, I would ask that, just because people using tape measures in different ways, like, let's do 7.5 if we can, but I'm all for
We
a taller
can't, it
fence.
said up to 8 feet, didn't it?
You can't exceed 8 feet.
You can't exceed 8 feet.
I know, but
So
I live in the
we
real
can
world. I have
condition
installers.
up to- Well, we can condition an 8-foot fence,
Or within 6 inches of 8 foot?
no,
Something?
as practicable.
Okay, good enough. Yeah, I'm good with that. I know for a fact that I've worked with Matt for a long time. He will not give me a permit until the attorney has approved every little bit of this.
Let me ask you this question. How quickly do you intend to get started on this?
I'm trying to break ground, in about 6 weeks. But the town board still has to approve it. And, so that's why that's why I made it clear a month ago that I was really trying to get it approved, so I encouraged any questions to just
So
reach right
Matt,
out to me.
my question to you is how soon do you think that answer will be out there relative to the possibility of these becoming apartments instead of extended stay?
That's going to take quite some time to get through. If the town is palatable to making a change.
That would be a
I
rezone,
would-
right?
Excuse me?
Wouldn't it be a rezone?
It would be an amendment to the zoning code. That takes quite some time to
Right.
get through.
Oh, that would take
Hearings
forever.
Right.
and-
That kills the project.
It's going to be a while,
Right, but what they're coming in now with is something that's permissible.
but it's being driven by inquiries by current building owners.
Yeah, I don't really have the time to wait for that process, but I am, barring any minor inconsistencies between the code, between if it's commercial motel versus residential apartments, I would be okay with switching this to apartments if the town allows it. The reason I planned this development accordingly was according to your master plan. I'm trying to do it the right way here.
Yeah, you're trying to avoid a rezone, which we can appreciate. And we should accept.
So the way it's designed and the way it presented it, in those units, if it did become for residential use, could the building as proposed be retrofitted to apartments?
Yeah, absolutely, that's a
With the
great question.
exception of the
Well, there's,
laundry and a couple of...
right, but those could be
You still
storage
need
areas
utility
after.
rooms, you still need corridors, you still need,
It would be very, very easy to
Okay,
retrofit it,
so-
and I would be willing to do that, too.
So if your motel use was not as successful as you hope, and if either you petitioned for a rezone to us, or if the town changed it, you could then retrofit the building, still keep the commercial downstairs with the multiple use,
Mixed use.
mixed use, mixed use. Okay, I'm just getting it straight in my head. This would work. I'm tired of looking at that vacant lot.
I would even go as far as to stipulate that I would seek that if the town changed their rule on it. Without having to change, if they did an amendment to the zoning, you could make this approval conditional on that. Not to overcomplicate it.
By the time you finish.
Well, to be honest, there's very little difference. My understanding is it's a slightly higher grade of sprinkler system, I think, that's needed, but I would just be overbuilding it now, less need later. And it's like the laundry, like I said, the housekeeping. I mean, what else, Matt? Is there anything else I think I have to have fire extinguishers in this bill, but I think do I have to have it with apartments anyway?
Either use, you would
Yeah, I
still
think,
need that.
right.
You know, the fire protection portion of it is very clear.
I'm overbuilding it if it's for a motel.
Did we talk about elevators?
How about
Is the elevator?
handicap accessibility?
Yeah.
Yeah, so actually, this was brought up in the variance meeting. It wasn't really the appropriate venue for it, but yeah, trust me, my engineer has been very thorough. That was one of the first questions I asked, if an elevator was required. And having the 2 apartments on the first floor that meet handicap accessibility requirements eliminates the need for an elevator. That's very clear. It's not up for debate. There's no elevator in the building. It's not needed for either zoning, apartment or motel.
That sounds right.
Right, you've got 2,
It's 25% of the units.
right, so the 2 units will be accessible.
Oh, yeah.
And that, okay.
Any other questions? I'm just trying to make it as straightforward as possible, and I think it is, but
You know, just a concern that was brought up before by some of the town board in regards to passing the site plans with conditions to adapt to them. A lot of, speak for, I'm not speaking for the whole board, but they have issues with that. Erie County Sewer still got to sign off on some of this, Erie County Highway Department, DOT, and again, just, I don't want
Yeah.
to throw water on it.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree.
I think there's some things that still have to be,
I don't want to tell them not to do the project.
Look, yeah, I got you.
The site plan, but I think, there's been board members say, we don't like having stuff, all these conditions,
yeah.
you know.
And Lucas,
But I can't get a permit until all of those things are approved. And actually, a couple of those agencies have asked me, okay, well, it's approved already, right? No? Okay, bottom of the list. That's the reaction I get if it's not approved yet. Like, that's what happens. Those conditions don't need to be met before the planning board approval.
Yes, they do. That's the new rules that we've gone with. I need to see approvals from those agencies that they're going to approve the project before I'll recommend approval.
I might be wrong then. I didn't.
The town, you said planning board, but it's the town
Oh,
board.
I'm
that
sorry.
needs
I
the
meant,
conditions to be met.
Said thank you for the correction.
all right, so we would like to, yeah.
We frowns upon the fact that, 17 conditions have to be met, from
Right.
county sewer, county highway, DOT, whatever.
Lucas, I wasn't looking at a long time. I was thinking of the next meeting,
I'm not against it, for or against it yet, but I'm just saying that I know other board members have concern with,
Yeah.
reading these conditions that are on their site plan, we're gonna approve it, but these conditions.
Well, let's not go in front of the board then until.
Do we typically have all of those approvals before we make a site plan approval?
We have lately.
Pardon me?
We're trying to do that,
Have
yeah.
lately.
We should have.
Yeah, I'm not looking for the permits from those agencies. I'm looking for a letter that says we've looked at the plans and we approve them. You still have to go in for construction permits. That's separate.
Is this new? Because who I'm dealing with at the DOT kind of put this at the bottom of his list because it wasn't approved by the planning board yet.
That's
What am
for
I missing
curb
here?
cut?
What's that?
Is that for the curb cut?
That's for your permit.
Not the curb cut, just the traffic flow, everything. Well, he's basically said we can't meet yet. It's not ready. We're not there yet.
You should have submitted a perm 33 to him already.
We did. We did a month ago.
That's all you need.
Yeah, he should be able to,
That's all you need. Once
They have that. They've had it. Well, remember, it's in 3
That's what they
stages.
need. And once the approval happens, they can issue that permit. That's the whole purpose of filing the permit 33.
Yeah, it's in 3 stages. So, and I'm not terribly familiar. So, but yeah.
Are we gonna have an answer from the town attorney's
I think
office?
the more important question is the deed documentation, the filing information. I think that's more vital than a highway work permit. Every building permit application needs a sewer tap permit, needs a highway work permit. It needs all this information before it can even review the plans for construction. That's part of the submittal package.
So you're not, but you indicated back in February, we were supposed to have these things, we're not here in April, don't have them. And that is something
That's
that,
what concerns me, because later on in life, when we're halfway through the project, and in many instances today, we have projects that are 75% occupied, and we're still chasing down information that should have been filed on the deed prior to the town board approval. We have subdivisions that don't have deed filings, and these homeowners are telling me, sorry, I'm not taking care of that bond.
That's the town board, right?
Prior to the map up. And this is the point that we're trying to hold firm to, and it's the local requirements must be met before the approvals happen.
At the town board, you mean? Right?
So,
Dave, when's
Yeah, so let's agree not
town
to.
board meeting? It's the first Monday. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna go before the town board until these things are filed.
That's right.
I'm not going to.
First,
I can't, anyway.
next town board meetings before the next planning board.
Yeah.
Well, yes, if we waited till our next planning board meeting and we recommended approval, then you'd be looking at May 16th, which is still only less than 4 weeks away. So I think we can fine tune some things, tie some things up, and that's my opinion.
So are you saying you think we should table it?
Yes.
Well, I have to agree.
I think we have to just because of the attorney situation. The rest of the stuff, I think he's met what he needs to meet. It's zoned properly, he has all the right parking, he has all the drainage. He's willing to change the fence.
Right.
He's willing to add planting if there's room. I'm not sure there's gonna be room. And it's zoned properly. Short of the attorney situation, I don't think there's anything else that's holding us voting on this project.
Well, let's vote on the motion that's in front of us.
We don't have a motion yet.
Somebody made a motion.
No,
to
we
table.
didn't make a motion. We had discussion.
So what are you saying, Tony? Should we,
I think we have no choice but to table it because of the attorney.
okay, so regardless, we should table.
Right.
But,
Once he comes back, I don't see there's anything here that we should not vote on it.
okay, I'm going to make a motion to table to the next meeting, May 4th. Do I hear a second?
Second.
On the question, anything else we want to direct Mr. James on the motion?
We've got, I just want to make sure we're clear what we're asking, that it would be provided to us, would be, we need to have information from the attorney's office that everything is in order, and we need something that you have agreed to having up to an 8-foot fence across the back. Whether you submit that as a change plan, which isn't necessary, or we just include it in the minutes. Do you think that would be adequate? Or do you think we need him to, I mean, it's a fence, but.
I mean, Dave's saying it doesn't want any conditions, so sounds like you'd have to add a note to your site plan to say up to an 8-foot
Yeah.
fence on the south property line.
But it doesn't have to be a revised plan, just change a note. Something that indicates up to.
It's a revised plan. I can do a revised plan, though. It's no big deal.
Okay, and the motion to table, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, table. All right, thanks, Lucas. Thanks for
Do you want the rest of that report?
Oh, yeah. What did I do with it?
That's it. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Thanks. Okay, it's not on the agenda, but I'd like to discuss Dollar General. Tara, come forward.
Good evening.
How you doing?
Doing well. Thank you for allowing me to come and at least address the board tonight regarding our project. At the last planning board meeting, there was some discussion of some requests from the planning board, and then we also needed to go before the zoning board of appeals to request some variances. So we attended the zoning board meeting last week, and they approved all the variances that we requested. At that meeting, there were some residents from the Park Haven residential neighborhood behind our property, and they had brought forward some concerns. And so I met with them earlier this morning and had a very, I think, productive, very nice meeting with them. I was able to, I think, answer their concerns and did a tour as well of the shared property line that we have. So I wanted to speak with you maybe about some of those comments and also show you some of the a revised rendering the store that we came up with based off of the feedback from the planning board. So basically, we had originally proposed just our standard design of store. I'm sorry, I should have brought a board to put this on. But the planning board said, they felt like we could do better and asked us to go back to the drawing board. And so we referenced a store that we had, we just opened earlier this year. It's on Southwestern Boulevard near the Bills Stadium. And so the front facade we thought would be a nice fit for this area as well. It's got a lot more differentiation in the facade itself. We're using some upgraded materials, including hardy plank siding. We've got some engineered brick details that are kind of form some more dimension and interest on the front wall. We would incorporate these shuttered they're faux windows, they're shutters, and then some nice awning details over the top as well. The other question that we had been raised was specifically about our signage. So I did reach out to Dollar General to see if they would be willing to change some of their signage requirements. They're in the process of getting me some artwork on that. Basically, to stay within the zoning ordinances, what we would be proposing is a sign with a pole sign. The pole would come up to about 8 feet, and then you would have the sign on top of that that would not exceed the requirements of size within the zoning ordinance. And so I believe that the sign space would be about 50 square feet, which is smaller than our typical size. I believe that the zoning ordinance allows up to 64 square feet for the sign. We did look at the possibility of a ground sign, but the ground sign cannot come more than 4 feet tall, and that is too low to the ground. So the 8-foot tall pylon sign, which I'll provide artwork on at a later date, is very similar to some of the other stores that are right there on that stretch of Broadway. Very similar design with the pole and the sign. The neighbors, as I mentioned, I had a chance to meet with them. I believe that they also sent a letter to the planning board, and they shared a copy of that with me. And so we addressed those concerns today. One of the concerns, so I'm not sure that was actually on the letter, it kind of came forward in the zoning board meeting, was about our survey. And one of the residents had been trying to compare our survey and site plan with a survey that had been done on a prior project for development of a nursery. Yeah. And he felt like there were some discrepancies there. And so I was able to walk through some of those items. And I think he'll probably take another closer look at it, because I could tell he has a very technical mind. But I think that I was able to at least let him know that I had taken his concerns before our surveyor. And we do believe, and our surveyor, who is a New York licensed surveyor, they did all of their due diligence. They pulled more information than the surveyor had pulled for that prior survey. And so we feel like our survey has a more complete picture of the property and its boundaries. Another concern they had was from the stormwater runoff. And I understand that after walking the property, I knew that our proposed lot sits higher than theirs does. So they're living in a piece of property that is more depressed than the land around it. And so naturally that is where the water flows. And it's a condition that they're already dealing with, basically. But we did talk about how our storm water designs are designed to meet not just DEC's guidelines, but also the more stringent guidelines of the town and the MS4 here. They've already been reviewed by the town's engineer. And overall, it should improve the situation for those residents, because right now there's really no stormwater system in place. The water just runs. But our system would help collect the water and then discharge it at a much more controlled rate. And I believe at like the peak flows of maybe 1 year and 100 year, I mean, we're reducing it by 50 to 64%. So we're basically cutting in half the amount of water that would be running off by collecting it and controlling it better.
Has our engineer reviewed that?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Yes, sir. He's done a full review of our plans. There was a question about landscaping. On our site plan, we, let me show you the landscaping plan. We're proposing to leave some mature trees along the property boundary because we were not planning to disturb this area back here. This is where the Park Haven homes are at, and this is the shared property boundary. They have a fence that runs on their property line, close to the property line, but it's on their side. And the trees that are right here at the property line, we were proposing to leave because we thought the residents might like to have the foliage and the screening effect because our property is sitting up higher than theirs. And so these trees are more mature and we thought they would like the screening effect. They did not feel that way. They felt like these trees are a bit of a nuisance to them. They are growing into their fence line. Some of the limbs may fall over and overreach into their backyard.
Some of them are dead already.
Some of them, at least one over in this corner, is dead for sure. The other ones, I think, mostly were alive, but they are mature trees, and so their branches are reaching. And so I told the residents we're not opposed to removing those trees, but I wanted to bring it forward to the planning board to make sure that that was a decision that you're okay with. I'd hate to go running in one direction to please them, and then the planning board say, well, hold on, we really like trees.
Well,
So
let me interrupt you for a second. Just by coincidence this afternoon, I met with Judy Martin.
Yes.
And she told me she met with you this
Yes.
morning. So I kind of talked about the same things that
Yes.
you're telling us about. But she walked me right over to there, and I'm all in favor of getting rid of those trees.
Okay.
And then there would be fencing, I believe, like
Yes, sir.
inset a little bit.
That's the next part that we talked about, is their development has a fence that goes along the property boundary, and it goes past our property boundary. It's the full length of their development. But on this section of our property, we had originally proposed to have the fence inset anywhere from probably around 15 to 20 feet inside the property line. And our justification was because of the grading. We thought, okay, well, this will give them even more of a screening effect because the fence will be sitting up higher. But in speaking with them, their preference is that we move the fence down to run along. It'll be on our side of the property, but it will follow our property boundary. And then at some point in the future, or whenever they choose to, they would basically connect to the ends, and then they would establish their own fence line from there to replace or repair their existing fence.
And that would be a couple feet higher where you're going to put it, right?
Right, we'd probably be coming in, a couple of feet off of the property line, off of our property line to put in that fence.
And it kind of goes like this, though.
It does. The grade does slope upward on our side of the property. So those were the things that we discussed today. Even though we're removing these existing, they're really deciduous trees, but we are proposing to put in several evergreen trees here, set back, onto our property line, and they were pleased with that solution. Let's see, if I covered everything. I think those were the main points. We talked, the facade of the building, which we kind of touched on right off the bat. My impression was that they were happy with the front of the building. They did request that I kind of see if I could do anything with the back of the building. What we had proposed, let me back up a couple of steps because I want to explain this, but I want you to also I'm just putting it here for context, not to try to put the problem on anybody else's doorstep. But we're a developer, the Broadway Group. We're just a real estate developer, and our client in this project is Dollar General. And so Dollar General, in order to get this project out of their real estate committee where they say, okay, this is a viable site, we have to provide a budget to them. And the budget that we develop is based off of the zoning ordinances. And so in the zoning ordinances, there were no architectural guidelines to say that these kind of upgrades would be required. We're already locked into that budget with Dollar General. So to provide these upgrades to the building facade, my boss basically has to find that funding, whether it's cutting the budget to the bone to find some extra money or dipping into his own pockets to find the funds to do these upgrades. So we did the extensive upgrades on the front because we thought, as far as the community goes and the view from Broadway, that's where we would focus all of our attention and the money that we could, all the funding that we could. As far as the back goes, we could probably do some sort of upgrades. I reached out to my boss today after our meeting, and he felt like we could do something. It would not be a mirror image of the front. It would be, maybe some plank siding instead of the painted metal paneling, but it would not be as updated as what we've done on the front. The residents did give me a suggestion of taking a picture or going to view the back of the deli that's next door to us, and so I did that, and basically the back of their building is painted cinder block, and then on the top of that I think it's some sort of an apartment or housing unit, and so that had some plank siding up there on the housing unit, or the second story level. So I felt like that would be something that they would appreciate, I guess, since they had given me that specific recommendation to look at the back of the deli to see how that was arranged, and considering what we could do on the back of our store. So I guess listening in on the prior applicant that was in front of you, and y'all touched a little bit on the timelines. I'm on quite a significant crunch of a timeline myself because we have obligations to Dollar General, and so technically I should be submitting all of my due diligence, including all of my permits to them by June the 9th, and hearing that, with the town board needing to weigh in on everything, it sounds like the soonest I might be able to get in front of them, if this board is ready to vote on, a recommendation of my project, would be, sounds like May the 14th. And so I know you have accommodated me so graciously to be here tonight. I wasn't supposed to be. I know I'm asking a huge favor because you were not prepared, for my fault, you were not prepared to discuss all of this tonight. But if there are items that you feel like I have not fully answered for you, that at the next meeting you would not be able to complete seeker or take a vote of recommendation, would you please let me know so that I can do my best to get that information and facilitate a vote?
I think we should be good, but
Okay.
a couple questions. You covered almost everything. I had a few things I wanted to ask, and you pretty much covered it. Now, you're going to demo that garage that's there?
Yes, sir.
Matt, does that require I remember when in the village we used to have a site plan?
It's not required in the town, it's just removing an accessory structure that should have been taken down when the nursery came down.
Okay, all right, so that's okay then.
The same
Trees and
concept with the old desert area building, that parking lot should have been removed in its entirety upon the demolition of that building.
Okay. All right, any other questions?
No, I actually think your improvements to the facade are pretty nice.
I agree, and thank you for doing that.
Yeah. Ask and you shall receive.
Well, we tried to be nice.
And just a question, was one of the people you met with Mr. Paramo?
Is his first name Jim?
Yes.
I believe that's his last name, but I only remembered their first names, not last
He
names.
called me, I told him that this wasn't on the agenda today, a couple days ago he called me, and I just, well, when it comes up, I want to know, so as long as you talk to him, I'll give him a call back tomorrow.
I did.
I know that he had discrepancies.
You
I
have
think his
questions
main
on
concern
where
was
the
the
boundary
survey.
lines were?
Yeah, I have his letter right here, actually.
Yeah, he called me, and I just wanted to make sure that when I talked to him,
Well, Dave, one reason why I went to see that Judy Martin was because it wasn't on the agenda, and I didn't want to, blindside her, so I went over and then found out that they had all met today. So she mentioned this as well. So I think we should be good on that. Ed, anything else more with the?
No, again, the only thing that, I would ask for is for your engineer to get correspondence from the other agencies that say they're in agreement and will approve the project. I'm not looking for their permit, because they won't do those, but
Right,
I need something that
right.
says sewer has capacity, water has capacity, DOT's fine, move ahead.
Yes?
I just have a question. I did take a look at your stormwater plan, and it's piping under the parking lot, and then it comes through
There's a pond.
a pond, and then I see the pipe comes out of the pond and heads south.
Into the existing drainage. That's where the existing drainage goes.
It's existing drainage ditch.
Ditch, yes.
It's a ditch.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah, but they're holding back the difference between the 1,000, so.
I get that.
It's even a wetland area.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, it is.
It's that marshy, wetty.
Correct.
Bottom of the slope.
Okay, okay. So half the time, people want those dried up, but I never do. Yeah. And I like them to stay I like them to stay wet.
Yeah.
So your rate of discharge is not, it's reduced, it's an extended time frame then.
It is.
It takes this volume and makes it this volume, so it takes longer to drain out.
Correct.
So the same discharge though makes it through that swale.
Yes. Yeah, it's just the rate changes.
I don't like to mess with my spring peepers. And they're peeping.
Matt, anything else?
Yes, if, within the next 5 to 7 days, if you're able to provide 12 hard copies for local distribution of the amendments that you've made to both the site plan as well as the elevations of the building and the signage package, along with the draft documentation of stormwater maintenance agreement in preparation for filing with the county, we can have all that documentation prior to the next meeting, we'll have it distributed. The board members can review it for its content. It shouldn't hold anything up. Seeker should be ready by then. I'm not sure when that will be ready.
Should, yeah.
We have a coordination date.
Lisa said we should be good for seeker time-wise.
For May 4th, correct?
May 4th, yeah. But she also mentioned SHPO, I think. But that's...
The stormwater permit is not a requirement.
No.
The SHPO letter is not required because we don't
Have a SWIP.
We don't have.
It's only required as a SWIP.
Right.
So one more time, if we can receive that documentation within the next 5 to 7 days, it's going to allow us time to distribute it, everybody have the opportunity to review it, so that at the next board meeting, they can make a recommendation with some sort of intelligence and, understanding of fully what the project is going to be. That'd be wonderful.
Just one more thing. What about the sides of the building?
Those would remain the metal paneling.
Okay.
Right.
What color is that?
It matches the,
Is it this?
it's the sandstone color.
Is the sandstone?
Right.
I had it somewhere, but I don't trust pictures of other sites,
Right, it's,
You
you've
did
got to
provide
depend on the
this, but I-
photo quality and stuff like that, but it's a beige sandstone.
Okay, thank you.
I think the changes that you mentioned tonight are a big improvement over what we saw the first time.
Okay, I think we should be good for May 4th. I would recommend you double check before you
Yes, sir.
make the trip.
Thank you again. I really appreciate it so much, and I know that you did not have to do this, but I'm very grateful.
Well, I think it was
I'm
a
glad
good
you
thing
did.
to, get it, to take care of these things now, so it actually worked out, in my opinion.
I'm very glad you did,
Yeah.
Okay,
All
Thank
right,
you.
Thanks.
especially since you saw the light.
Okay, just one more thing I wanted to discuss was our take on lot sizes. Our town engineer sent out, he called it a markup of his thoughts and on lot sizes, and I, for one, am ready to move forward, and I would like to do it quickly. But I think we need to discuss it before, so we don't do it too quickly. But any comments? And I know Rebecca, you had a comment on the setbacks, I believe, and his, was it the setback?
I was just wondering whether or not the setbacks, like on like setbacks for fences, for example, if we have addressed them, so we're reducing the burden on the planning board and the zoning board, and that doesn't seem to be the case yet.
Well,
We're not there.
again, everything is pending the size of these lots.
Right.
We're developing, I don't know, 100 lot subdivisions, 200 lot subdivisions at that minimum, 9,375 square feet.
Right, right.
75 feet wide. We have, in many cases, a 55 to 60 foot wide building, 30, sometimes 45 feet deep, with a 35 foot front yard setback and a 35 foot rear yard setback, 10, 15 foot wide easements at the back property line. So by the time you build this 40 foot deep property, you put a 16 foot patio in. Now you have to put in a 16 by 30 in-ground swimming pool and a 12 by 16 shed. There's not enough room in that yard to do that. And you got to push the limits of the side yard setbacks, and you're encroaching into those graded easements.
It would never occur to any people to not build all those things, though, would it?
Well, it's, it's suburbia. You have to have.
It's the American dream.
It needs to be covered, you want to enclose it, you want to have the amenities, as opposed to, moving into a patio community with a community pool and,
Right,
all that
right.
other stuff. Somebody else cuts your grass,
Right.
So, you're going to have these accessory structures and amenities on these parcels. So, looking at it holistically within the R1 district, it could be beneficial to increase those lot sizes. Other municipalities are breaking up those residential districts, which we got away from. And we did that on purpose because there were just too many residential districts.
Right.
All different standards, different sizes, and what have you. And that's what introduced the planned unit development concept on residential districts.
One thing I noticed, Matt, was when I was looking through the code, I know we're talking about residential, but under light commercial,
Yes.
there was a 50-foot width, minimum width, and I think that can't be correct.
Lot width?
Yeah, I can't remember where I saw it, but,
It's on table B.
I mean,
It's on table B.
yeah, table B. And I think if that was correct, it should be changed along with the other changes that we make.
Those are side and rear yard structures, 50 feet from the property line.
It's setbacks.
These are
It's a setback. The minimum lot widths.
I thought this was actually I think it was setbacks. I won't be able to find it now, but something to look for.
It takes me a little bit to scroll up and down on the schedules. Yeah, front yard is where we lost the front yard setback dimensioning. But on the minimum lot width in the light commercial district is 50 feet.
Yeah, I thought that,
It's rather narrow.
with all the other commercial and industrial.
And the other districts is 100 feet. So I'm not sure if that was a mistake carryover or what happened.
Yeah, maybe it was just a typo, who knows?
It may have, but I'm a firm believer that the files that were carried over at that time were corrupted. The contractor had a loss in one of their staff members. Somebody else picked up the process midstream. And again, it just went through. And what we thought we were getting, we didn't get. And when it was finally codified.
Well, in your opinion, should that be 75 feet or 100 feet?
It should be 100 feet.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, in the light commercial, general commercial districts, I mean, these are scattered throughout the town. And on the state roads, we have the overlay, the access management overlay. The whole point of this is to create enough room on these lots to build a product that, one, is going to fit, and two, is going to be accessible off those main roads. I mean, unfortunately, this car wash, whatever's going to go on that lot is going to be shoehorned in because the lot is too small. Fortunately, they own the property to the north. We're going to incorporate that into that project and increase the size. But again, the more room you have, the more flexibility you have with your build-up.
And that was adjourned.
Excuse me?
And that was tabled.
Yeah, that one, it did make that zoning board until we get through seeker.
I think it's been tabled twice, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has been. And again, we have to get through the seeker process so zoning board of appeals can render their decisions, and then this board can then take action on it.
Didn't they have a number of different variances that they wanted to put in?
They were not going to rule on it until seeker was complete.
Yet they ruled on other projects. Well, I'm ready to move on this. I don't know, the next step would go to our town attorney's office, but
Put the package together, you mean?
any other comments? I don't know how to put it in a motion, but my motion would say, let's recommend to the town board that we incorporate the changes that our town engineer made, along with the light commercial.
Corrections of the existing
Correction.
issues with Schedule B, and Lisa and I have a tally of all the inconsistencies within the schedule.
Okay.
Do it all one fell swoop.
You're correct. We'll just correct Schedule
So
B.
before I actually make that motion, any other comments? Councilman Mazur, you're okay with that? All right, I will make that motion.
Okay.
Do I have a second?
Happily.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And on the question? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay. Emily, I don't know what the next step is. Ed?
Lisa has the markup that I did, and she has your list, Matt, all the other corrections, so it's just a matter of her.
I think the town board would have to set a public hearing
Yes.
for that. Okay. Then we go through. All right. Anything else, anybody?
Yes, I have 2 points I need to make. First, on Monday night, we did have a public hearing to make an amendment to our current site plan requirements, which basically changes the extension request to be brought back in front of the planning board. I'm going to be drafting a letter to the town board asking some questions and making some recommendations as far as process and policy. How does an applicant who has an expired site plan approval make application to the town board for their extension? Currently, the way our town code is written, we haven't followed it in decades as far as applications are concerned. Because these projects are all town board actions, the applications must be made, filed to the town clerk's office, and made with the town board, which then will refer to the planning board for its review and recommendation. This is without site plans and all subdivisions. So in the years, and I understand history, and I've been trying to accommodate and justify it in my mind the way the code is written, how did we get here? At this point, I'm not even going to go back and learn that history. My focus is on to streamline the process and have the boards that are responsible for doing the work and the departments that are responsible for being the resource to the board work together as a team to get these projects in front of these panels, get what we need from these applicants, and then turn around an approval that everybody can, know that it's done correctly, properly, and it doesn't put a strain. Our department is decimated today. Today it is decimated. We're severely understaffed. We have no support for this panel because we just can't expend the hours. I'm down to 1 zoning clerk, 1 part-time clerk, and my code officials are already up to their eyeballs doing their own work. I can't be a planning director. I have responsibilities in my other avenues. I understand the history, and I don't want to get into who's doing what, when, and why, but I've been adamant that, my zoning clerk cannot schedule your business for you. They cannot create the information. She does not have any of the documentation. She doesn't know what got tabled tonight for the next meeting. She doesn't know when seekers do. She doesn't know when, all of the dates that need to be hit. She just does not have that capability nor that information. And she's frustrated. I get frustrated on a regular basis because all the applicants call me. Why am I not on the agenda? What do I need? How do I have to do? And I just don't have the answers for them because because.
And then they call me, and I tell them, check with the building department, because I don't know if they have their stuff in. So I take issue with this. We can't be making be making the agendas.
You gotta let me finish, because when we receive the information, we try to turn it around as quickly as we possibly can. And again, we were charged with the responsibility of receiving the application, identifying it for its content, and then moving it forward to all the departments to make their, their recommendations, their comments, and whatever it is. And again, we're severely understaffed. We can't do the work, and it's not servicing anybody to continue this way. So if there's a way that we can find a process, a policy, a better way to handle the applications that are coming in, and then moving them forward to all of the departments that need to make comment, so that we're not leaving the applicants hanging, and at the same time, we can all do what needs to be done on behalf of the town. We just haven't been servicing the applicants properly. So I've been talking with the town board. I'm getting more staff. We've been talking about trying to understand a better way to do this. I'm working with the engineer and to try to compare notes with other towns on how they address these things. It's just too much, and unfortunately, our residents are starting to suffer the effects of it because we're missing things.
Town of Orchard Park, population 30,000. They have a planning coordinator, and they have a half-time planning clerk, and another clerical part-time. So they have a coordinator, a full-time planning clerk, and a half-time planning clerk, and they have the planning board members as well. 30,000. They're smaller than the town of Lancaster. All right. We are all. Most of us have jobs. We're not a planning department. We're the planning board. So I'll defer to the town board.
Yeah, and again, to have, for what you all do as public servants, you don't have the time to get into the specifics that you're being asked to do. You just don't have it. And oftentimes your decisions are being based on, well, I hope they do this. And I hope that somebody can pick up, where we may oversee something. Honestly, I'm looking at vacant spaces that the owners are trying to get these lease tenants in, and there's not enough parking. There's not enough room on their signboards. There's just not enough. I'm still chasing down these stormwater agreements. It's driving me crazy, and a lot of these ponds are already defunct. The biobeds are not working. They already need to be rebuilt. We're not that old. Weeds are growing 4 feet tall when they were never meant to have that type of vegetation. The capacity of the ponds is reduced. Subdivisions is the same thing. Siltation comes in there and they're not holding the water necessary. The sun is shining through the water, growing the cattails. It's a disaster. You understand what I'm talking about, but for those that don't have that technical understanding, is it that big of a deal? Is it really? It is, especially when our speedies permit is being renewed more stringent than the last permit. I'm not seeing an end to this, and the strain that's happening is beginning to show. The cracks are starting to show. So again, if we can all work together as boards, as departments, pick up the slack, understand what the new standards are, and then move forward so it's better for the town as opposed to just struggling to keep up with the ball. That's my plea tonight. So if we can go back to where I opened up, the planning board is going to be the agency that's going to be considering the renewals of the expired approvals. So how do we get that into motion? And again, I'll draft an idea. I'd love to have your input on it. I'd love to have the attorney's input on it, the town clerk's office. How do we get these applicants back in front of the board to get their projects back online? So some of them were great, and some of them not so
Like
great.
Matt, in the case of deals we're talking about, we approved it.
Yeah.
It probably should have gone back. Is that what you're saying?
I don't see the need for it because there was no change to the plan.
And I voted for it, but I'm saying there wasn't no vote.
And the code, again, is specific. The approval is granted by the town clerk. And what's the process when we make application to the town town board for the exception. So again, just to fill in those gaps to help them, but also to help us, so that if we do recognize that there's a change, that we can take advantage of it. But in this case, the conditions were finally met halfway through COVID, which killed the project from day one, but they finally were able to combine the parcels. They were finally able to file a stormwater agreement. And I even started discussing with them in July. It didn't get completed until March of this year. And then they needed to have their extensions in order for me to issue the building permit. Private improvements permits can be issued for the project to get going, because now they're ready to go. So, that's what's kind of kicking off that discussion. So, change a lot of times it's hard, but, it's going to benefit the town overall, because we're going to get better projects, better applicants are going to be able to go through the process a little more efficiently.
Sounds to me like you need a part-time or even full-time planner in the building department.
If
sounds
that's
like to
the
me.
avenue we want to go, by all means, let's do that. But I think we need to be purposeful in going in that direction.
Well, that's what I'm hearing, is that you need a person who addresses what's coming to us
Can coordinate this whole
and
process.
coordinate
And
this,
help coordinate, exactly.
but not a new building permit official. You're not looking for someone to deal with the inspections and the permits. You're looking for a coordinator, a planning coordinator, probably full-time person to work out of your office.
It's something that's long.
It is. It is. I mean, and I've been on the board, I don't know. I don't keep track of 20 years maybe.
You held the hammer when the first stage was built.
I was so young then. Anyway, and I remember hearing it then. And it was during the days of how many building permits were issued? 240 a year, something like that, with all these subdivisions going up. And it was chaos in Bedlam then. But you had more office staff. There was more office staff.
And again, we're having discussions with the town attorney, town board, at the end of next week. We're being directed again by the Department of State to update our current building construction administration portion of the code. And again, those requirements there's more standards that are being added. So now there's more work just on the building code administration portion of it.
Right.
And again, we're still dealing with a staff that we probably should add the aides. Right? So, I'm not crying just to cry. I'm crying out in desperation that we need some help.
Yeah.
We need to get on top of this stuff, because these projects that have been approved, many of them have yet to be inspected for fire safety and property maintenance. Some of them are 10, 15 years old.
That's why, we had this discussion, now, obviously, Amherst is a lot like 110, 120,000 people. But the planning department, we said like 36 members?
The building department,
Building department.
36 employees in the building department.
Where?
No zoning, no planning, town managers. No zoning, it's specifically building code administration.
That's right, they have a full-time planning staff.
You and I and Joe met with Clarence, and they're smaller than we are, and they have two members of the planning department.
So, again, I'm crying out in desperation here.
Well, Dave, how does the town board feel about all this?
It's all about money.
Yeah.
That's the unfortunate part.
And that's the God's honest truth. It's been that way. Until, when he was town clerk, said there should be a planning department 30 years ago.
That's right.
25 years ago when I worked here in the assessors of engineering, he said that. He said, really, that should be something that should be in the room. But everybody was afraid because it costs money. And they're afraid that politics, get involved with hiring somebody. And, back then was what it was that. And I'm sure today, but it's about money, we just had meetings with the dispatchers, with the police chief. They're short, there's lots of departments that are short, and I feel it from me. I talk all the time about it.
Well, I wasn't going to whine, but I think I will. I probably spent 5 hours today on planning, and Only reason I can do it is because I'm retired.
Right.
I couldn't have done, and, you know, I don't have little kids at home, and so I could do it, you know, but it's getting to be almost a full-time job. I don't want to say it is a full-time job, but
Absolutely right. And it's a huge responsibility because we're, you know, everybody relies on each other. Town board is relying on you.
That's right.
And, you know, and we've all said, look, we all make mistakes. And I do it every day too. But I try to not make those same mistakes twice. So, you know, but how can you possibly do that when you're drinking out of the roads? It's devastating. Some days it's devastating. Lastly, you know, I have the information from the Midtown Apartments from the town of Chickawaga. Their negative secret declaration. It got given to me for some reason. I don't know why I have it, but I feel that you should review it.
I feel like I got it
We
sent to
got
me.
it.
You
Yeah.
have it? You
It
have
was,
it? Okay.
I read it.
I'll offer
I sent it,
anybody that wants it.
I may have, I sent something around. I don't know
I
if
think we
was
got
that.
it via email, didn't we?
I think I sent the final site plan around.
All right.
Said FYI.
Somebody sent that whole, yeah.
Because they addressed everything up front. You can do it. Yeah. They were in seeker for 2 years.
Yeah. So, you know, again, these coordinated reviews that are going to happen between Lancaster, Chickawaga, Lancaster, Clarence, Lancaster, the village of Lancaster, you know, once that communication starts to get better and better and better, we're going to get better responses and really feel we're going to get better projects out of it. You know, all of it is starting to develop like you really not need. They are the town of Lancaster 45 years ago.
Right.
Just on the cusp of it. You can see Town Line Road has been all reestablished.
Yep.
It's coming. I'm telling you, it's coming. We're a third rate suburb. Half of our town has a sewer district. And we're kind of maxed out. Now we're going to be looking at infill. So infill, redevelopment projects. How do we take advantage of all the infrastructure improvements that are happening? And I really believe that's, you know, a better concerted effort at looking at these projects and the impact on transportation, the impact on the road infrastructure. The state and county will respond. They have to.
I had a discussion today while I was getting my truck inspected by a builder who complained that Lancaster has no small lots, that we took away the R2 zoning, and he says, people can't afford to buy a big lot. And I said, but there are lots out there. They're pre-existing. They just don't happen to be for sale at the moment, or they have plans
We
for
didn't
it.
take away the small lots. We introduced planned unit developments.
Right,
It's
right.
incentive zoning. So if
Right.
you want a small lot,
You gotta get
town
some.
board doesn't have to run to the zoning board to get a
Right.
variance on the size of the lot for the development. It's a planned unit development that takes a massive acreage,
Right.
identifies the density in a certain portion of that acreage,
He wasn't-
allows the small lots, allows the tighter
Right.
groupings.
He wasn't looking for
And it
that.
preserves everything else on the project.
He's looking for his one
He was
lot.
looking for, what his argument was if you sell smaller lots for less money, then people will build smaller houses. I said, no, they won't go for variances to build from lot line to lot line.
They'll
That's
yeah,
right.
be zero lot line.
That-
Again, that's a response to the patio home industry.
That's right.
and the
That's right.
industry. It's just a different way of getting.
I agree. I was just telling you that I heard some opposition from our discussion of having larger lot sizes. And I said, well, there's going to be opposition because you can't make everybody happy.
In the rural areas, it's somewhat mandated to accommodate larger lot sizes.
Larger lot
You have
sizes.
to preserve those, especially in the ag districts. You have
But
to preserve that.
you have to have room for sewer. I mean, there's not for septic and leach fields and things. too.
Drainage has become
Drainage.
a nightmare in the rural areas. But I really appreciate your openness to the discussion. We should have further discussions because we're not going to get any smaller. The stresses of development are going to continue here until there's nothing left. And we really shouldn't be put in a position where the town begins to die off because it doesn't have taxable revenue.
And yet we have areas that should never be developed. We do have areas that cannot, because they have other layers of things, but we have other areas that probably maybe don't have state or federal protection, but should not be developed, because we don't have drainage problems in places, because they act as that big sponge, like the Panora Street Woods, which don't really affect Lancaster, but they would affect the village. So we have a lot of areas to consider when people come in for development, should this be here, and that's exact perfect place for like planned unit development. So I'm very
Look at
happy.
the areas that you can, and leave
That's right.
the environmental aspects of it alone.
Right, so I'm very happy that we have that as an option. But what can this board do to put pressure on the town board to get some help in your office?
The recommendations, and it's the constant discussions. So, again, with, the fee structures that we have can offset some of those costs. If our department could be freed from that to focus on the building code and administration, fire safety and property maintenance inspections is a self-funding opportunity to get these code officials to do the fire inspections.
Because of the fees?
The Edgewater is due for fire safety and property maintenance inspections. It's 260 residential units. That's 3 months worth of work for one person, 24, full time. 3 months, and that's one project. Not to mention 18 pavement. Again, thank you.
There are quick projects I just mentioned, DOT projects. We were unaware of until about a week ago. I'm trying to get confirmation. We were told by the North County resident, 2 projects DOT has. One is they're repaving Genesee from Harris Hill east, just a mill and overlays. It won't be anything major, but we were told this year. The other project, I don't have a timeline. The only thing I was told was within the next couple of years is a total reconstruction of the Harris Hill Genesee intersection, widening turn lanes.
Finally.
I reached out for confirmation to downtown DOT. I haven't got an email back yet, but we were in discussions about some water line work there, and that came up. So I don't know what
Sidewalks?
Not if they're just doing the intersection, it wouldn't be sidewalks. They might put crosswalks in at the intersection, but probably not.
In anticipation of redevelopment, that would require a sidewalk.
They will make you do that sometimes. We had to do it by the Hillview School on Pleasant View. We were doing water line work, and they made us put a curb cut in with a crosswalk, but there was no sidewalk there.
Just don't do it while trying to lose it.
No, it sounds like it's a couple of years out.
Yeah.
We're going north south, Harrisville, Genesee, left, just Country Roads.
Well, that's the DOT coordination. They're on the north side of Transit Road right now. They're getting there.
Got off the thruway and Walden between the thruway and Union Road. This whole center line is cut out.
Oh, boy.
All right, I'm going to move to adjourn. Can I have a second?
A second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, it'll be 9 o'clock.
Well, it was longer than I thought by the length
By
of the
the-
agenda.
Access control, access. Access management. We just had a project.
Shouldn't have sent someone with this horrible.
Last week they had to bug out the meeting because my son got COVID. And his wife got COVID. And I took the grandchildren, so I couldn't get to the meeting.
Yeah.
And the grandchildren got COVID.
My son got it a couple weeks ago.
And then I got it. So, and that was the second time I had it.
You got it?
I got it again. I got it for my grandchildren.
Got the Omicron.
Right. It was like a bad cold. I didn't lose sense of smell or anything like that. But it's coming through the, so then one by one I'm returning the kids. Because go back to your parents because they have COVID.
Yeah.
Oh, the trash can.